things that are going to turn your mind on and things that are going to turn your body on. So when I talk about things that are going to turn your mind on, that is either time you're spending reading books, listening to podcasts, watching videos, anything of that sort. Because it's very important we get our minds dialed in. Working on your business, it's good to block at least an hour a week off just to work on your business. I want that in there. I also want things working on your body, because a fit body is a more efficient body. When we do things like get up and start the morning off and we get a workout in first thing in the morning, we're already starting off with an accomplishment before we ever show up in the office. And by the time you show up at the office, you've already done something that's really got you moving, you're grooving. You don't need to come in the office and then hang out for a little bit and then plan the journey over to Starbucks. You're coming in, you're showing up at 8:15, 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever that time is, and you're ready to grind because you're already turned on. Your mind is on, your body's on. So I want you guys to block some time off for yourselves to actually focus on your mind and your body. All right, so we got family, we got religion, we got mind, and we got body. Now we're going prospecting, because we're not going to be very effective prospecting if we don't have our mind, our body, and our hearts turned on. So now we got to block off that prospecting time. So the studies that have been done show that anywhere in that 8 to 11 range and that 4 to 7 range are the most effective times to be prospecting. Now, what I've learned over the years is it's a whole lot easier to make calls between 8 and 11 than it is to make them between 4 and 7. Now, physically, picking the phone up is the exact same process, but the weight of the phone gets much, much heavier as the day goes on. The more, we're more likely to make the calls the earlier we do them, because if you think about everything that happens, let's just assume your day at the office starts at 8. By the time, let's say you block 4 o'clock off to make your calls, by the time 4 o'clock rolls around, you've made so many decisions, and your brain can only make so many decisions in a day before the quality of those decisions starts to tail off. You've dealt with all kinds of different things. A day like today, it's hot, you're tired, you're exhausted. Like, do you really want to make the calls at 4 o'clock? Like, are you really in the right state to make those phone calls? Or are you in a better state to make those at 8 o'clock after you just did something, listened to a great podcast, went to the gym, spent time with your family, and now you make the phone calls immediately after that? Like, when are you going to be in a better state? And think about, if I'm in the right state, how much more effective I can be when I'm actually making those prospecting calls. Am I going to be above or below the average if I'm in the right state, versus if I'm trying to make those calls at 4 o'clock when I'm just mentally and physically worn out? Where am I going to be more effective? One of the best analogies I've been able to come up with is thinking about an oil rig and how the process of pumping oil works and what happens when you actually strike oil. And that's much like we should run our businesses. But far too often what ends up happening is, to get oil, you've got to drill a hole in the ground, and then you've got to start pumping oil, right? Well, there's machines that do it now, but in the old days you physically had to pump something, and you'd pump it, right? And it'd start to come up and come up, come up, come up. But if you stopped, the pressure would drop and the oil would just go all the way back down to the bottom. Then you'd have to start pumping all the way again to try to get it back up to the top. And then once you get it to the top, oil's spraying everywhere, everybody's dancing, it's called black gold, and everybody's making a ton of money. But the second you stop pumping, the oil stops spewing, you stop making money. Prospecting is the same thing. So if you do it for a little bit, then you stop, then the oil level drops all the way back down. Now you gotta start pumping it again. And it's actually harder to pump the further down it is, because you gotta apply more pressure. As you get closer to the top, there's less pressure. It's easier. So you need to think about your prospecting like you're pumping oil. And it's gotta be something you do every single day, and you keep that pressure applied, and the oil is gonna keep spewing. But if you get to the point where you do a little prospecting, oop, I got 3 or 4 deals now, I don't need to prospect anymore, I'm gonna focus all my time over here. Well, now your oil pressure is dropping back down again. And now when these deals close, now you come back over, you're like, oh God. And it's so much harder to get that going again. So you got to think this is something you're doing consistently. It's not something you do when you don't have business. You do this all the time. You always got to be feeding that funnel with more business. You've got to trust in yourself. You got to trust in your systems. You got to trust in your team that's around you, that once you put it in the funnel, it's going to take care of itself. It's going to make it out the other side of that funnel. But you've always got to be prospecting. So it's not something you do one day a week. It's something you do every day. It's the most important thing you do in your real estate business specifically every single day. It's the number one activity you do that's going to put food on the table for you and for your family.